What on earth possessed them to think it was anything to do with them, what their young viewers devoured?
Well, this is the thing with the BBC is they're just so sort of myopic in their middle class bubble that they don't see a problem with spreading this climate panic amongst children. I mean, children have been through an awful year where they've been separated from their friends, they've been scared, witless by relentless messaging about COVID and what have you, and now it's back to climate panic, courtesy of the BBC. And I think the BBC essentially are taxpayer funded social engineering, and that is simply not on. Not everybody can afford to shop at Whole Foods. It's not easy to provide a balanced diet without meat in it if you're not well off. And they need to stop campaigning and get back to just being a broadcaster. And if they can't do that, and if they can't sort of deliver on the public service that they're supposed to be doing, then they should be moving over to being a commercial enterprise.
I mean, thankfully, these days, hardly even young kids, hardly anyone watches Blue Peter. It used to have a massive audience. It used to be like a national institution, this programme. It's lost much of its prominent status over the past few years. But there they are, telling their viewers, the kids, go meat-free and become a climate hero. Well, one thing they ought to learn at the BBC, if I may humbly suggest, is that, we all accept there's climate change going on. Is it an emergency? That the BBC might like to take on board is a debate, and they should not be particularly aiming at young viewers, acting as if it's not a debate, that is an actual undisputed fact.
It's just not acceptable, particularly not when they're funded by British taxpayers.
Well, I must, in fairness to the BBC, read out what the spokeswoman said about this website. It said that its website, which urged meat-free, become a climate hero to the kids, has been updated to reflect that buying seasonal food or local grass-fed meat can also make a difference to climate change. She said that the Go Meat-Free message had appeared on screen during a Blue Peter episode, and at the same time a presenter had said, or choose a meat-free meal. So they're sort of basically saying, well, we just said you should have the odd meat-free meal rather than pursue a total vegan diet forever. They added, we are not asking Blue Peter viewers to give up meat. This has, of course, appeased the farmers a little. But it still is a strange thing to do, I think. And it's... the BBC sometimes seems to forget that it's just there to make programmes, not to sell political messages, particularly to kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even that step down to sort of, grass-fed meat, it's just so unbelievably middle class. Who could, not everyone could afford
well, that's the BBC for you. you can't get a job there unless you've been to Oxford or Cambridge in a private school. You know that.
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, grass-fed meat, yeah, brilliant if you can afford it, but not everybody can afford it. And why should the children of, lower middle class and working class families be made to feel that they're somehow going to kill the planet? It's just awful messaging for young children to be subjected to.
I don't want to get... I mean, I know it's your job to knock the BBC. I don't want to get involved in a festival of BBC knocking, but I do have to ask you about the coverage of Prince Philip's death. Now, I completely support the BBC in reacting to that story as hugely as they did. It's a massive story. People are very interested in it, and it's only correct that the state broadcaster should keep us up to speed on this great event in the history of our state. But they went about it in a very strange way, didn't they? Insofar as they took BBC 4 off air, basically made, if you wanted to listen to the BBC or watch the BBC, you could only watch BBC 1 and BBC 2, which showed identical programmes at the same time. So there was no choice whatsoever. Meanwhile, over on pop stations, Radio 1 and Radio 2, they were playing sombre music. The BBC kind of wants to be cutting edge and modern all the time, doesn't it? But give it a second and it will revert to some sort of ancient establishment that is kind of I don't know, brainwashing the nation into grieving for this great royal personage. It was strange, wasn't it?
I think it was strange, and they went about it all in the wrong way. They tied themselves up in knots. I mean, it's perfectly acceptable to have sort of BBC One dedicated to this, the programming, and then have other options on BBC Two and BBC Four. Then they also, had this form to make it easier for people to complain. And now we have this headline, which they have essentially created, saying that they've got the most ever complaints based on the Prince Philip coverage.
Yeah, but I think Rebecca, though, they've worked out how to stop the flood of complaints coming in. They've removed that form now, so that people.
Oh, exactly. So they yeah, so they can remove that form now. People have said, on social media that they once you get over a certain complaints, that automatically happens. Well, clearly shows that they can remove that form, and we'd be more than happy for them to put up a form asking for complaints overall about the BBC license fee, because we're sure that we could get more than 100,000 complaints on that and beat that record.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, it is strange, but the BBC did say that it felt it ought to reflect the importance of the Prince's death, and it was an important event. But if you take away the right to watch MasterChef, The Final, and EastEnders, you'll find people will complain. All they were asking for is a choice. Okay, I can watch BBC Two. That's all about Prince Philip. BBC One, maybe not. BBC Two lost 60% of its audience. ITV did the same thing. They started doing Wipeout Prince Philip. They lost 60% of their audience. And the biggest show of the night, the most watched show of the night, guess what? It was on Channel 4. It was Gogglebox, got 4.2 million viewers. In other words, people ran away from the BBC's blanket coverage of Phil and watched Gogglebox. So there's a message there. You've got to there's a happy medium, and the BBC so rarely finds it. They certainly didn't with their coverage of Philip, and I think they got it wrong on Blue Peter as well. But they do say they've rectified that situation, and they have come up with an explanation. Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. Rebecca Ryan, campaign director at Defund the BBC. As I say, the BBC says it did not tell viewers, its young Blue Peter viewers, to give up meat. The meat free message was supposed to be just sort of one meal here and there. Give it up and choose a meat free meal and save the planet. Still a bit odd, I think, for strange territory for a kids program like Blue Peter.